Okay, so here we are in our basic shapes worksheet, and we're going to use this worksheet to learn some of the basic tools in Adobe Illustrator. So I'm going to open up my layers panel in the top right here. We'll see that we have a shapes layer and a template layer, and our template layer has those shapes that you can see on the screen currently in our 4 artboards. And I can toggle the visibility here by clicking on the eye icon and turn it off and back on. And as I mentioned, we have 4 artboards. We have rectangles, circles or ellipses, polygons, and stars. And those 4 basic tools can be found under the rectangles in our toolbar here. And if we right click, we can see all 4 of them listed here. And that's what's going to allow us to do this basic shapes worksheet. So let's get started with our rectangle tool. And I'm going to zoom in on that artboard, get it centered, and we're going to start creating. So you'll see I have my default color set to white and black. I'm going to get rid of the fill there, so I just have a black stroke or outline, and I'm going to start creating. So I'll go to the top left-hand corner of this rectangle, and I'm just going to click and hold. And I'm going to drag down to the bottom right to create my rectangle. Very simple. Once we have it created, we can always go in and change the size, so the height or the width, or I can do them at the same time. Now this tool is going to let me change the height and the width separately or together. But if I want to maintain the proportions that I started with, I'm going to hold down the Shift tool, and it's going to make sure that it's a proportional scale. And that'll come in handy later. While I'm doing that, if I hold down the Alt key, it's going to make sure that it is scaling from the center point in all directions. But back to our shapes. Now that I have the rectangle drawn, I'm going to do the same thing for the square. And as I just did, I can use this Shift tool to make sure that it's not too tall or too wide. I can hold down Shift and it's going to make it a perfect square for us. So now we have our square and our rectangle. We want to work on our green diamond here. So the green diamond is basically a perfect square. So I'll hold down Shift once again and draw that shape. And if I move my cursor up just outside of the outside controls there, you'll see it change to a little curved line with an arrow on either end, and that is our rotate tool. So I can click and hold and drag my mouse around, and it'll let me rotate a full 360 degrees. Now what I want to do for this one is 45, and instead of trying to get it precise just by moving my mouse, I'm going to hold down that Shift tool again, and it's going to snap to either 45, 90, 135, etc. So we'll leave it at 45 degrees there, and we have all of our basic shapes drawn. So if I use my black selection tool, black arrow up here in the toolbar, I can select each one of my shapes and the eyedropper tool, and I can give it the color that's found in the background here. So I'll select each one and sample that color from the template layer, and I have all 4 of my shapes. So if I turn off my template layer, you'll see my 3 vector shapes in the right colors. Simple as that. So now I'm going to turn my template layer back on, and I'm going to move along to my circles or ellipses, as they like to call them in Illustrator. So again, I'm going to take my default colors as black and white and get rid of that fill. I want to right click on the rectangle tool and select the ellipse tool this time. So I'll start with the blue one again, starting in the top left-hand corner, and I want to drag down to the bottom right to create my oval. And again, for the circle, I just want to make sure I'm holding Shift to make sure that it's a perfect circle that's the same height as it is width. Those ones are pretty easy. Again, I'll use my selection tool, select it, use the eyedropper tool to take on the color of the shape in the background, and again for my blue oval. And once again, if I hide my template layer, we'll see that we have our two vector shapes. Okay, now we're going to get into the polygons. So they function the same as the squares or the rectangles and the ellipse tools. I want to grab my polygon tool from here. Again, we'll go default colors with white and black, get rid of my fill. Now the polygon's a little bit different because it starts in the center point of whatever shape we're drawing. So I'm going to get close to the center of this triangle, and I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to start dragging outwards. And you'll see that it's going to begin to create a shape, but this shape is actually not a triangle. It has 6 sides instead of 3. So before I release my mouse, I can use the up and down arrow keys on our keyboard to go down in the number of sides or decrease, or up to whatever shape that I want to create. So for the triangle, I'm going to go down to 3, and I'm going to hold down the shift key so it makes my triangle nice and square. And I'll draw it like this. Now before I let go of my mouse cursor, if I hold down the space bar, it's going to let me move it around while I'm creating it. So I can get it right in the right position, let go of the space bar, get my size just right, and release my mouse button. So I have my triangle. Now I'm going to come over here for this polygon. And again, we need to use our arrow keys. And I'm going to tap the up arrow to increase the number of sides. And then I'll hold down shift to make it nice and square. And I created that shape. Same thing down here. I'll find the center. I'm going to use the up arrow key to get my number of sides just how I want it. I'm holding down the shift key to make sure that it's nice and square. I'll press down my space bar and move it around a little. Release my space bar and change the size. And I have that shape. I can now use my selection tool, make sure I have each of my shapes selected. And again, use the eyedropper tool to fill them with the correct colors. And again, I'll take a look by hiding the template layer, and I'll see that I have each of my 3 vector shapes there. Okay, last but not least is our star tools. So I'm going to right click on the polygon tool, change it to star tool, default colors, and get rid of the fill. And we'll start with our basic star. So it is a 5-point star. I'm going to start from the middle again. Click and hold my mouse button and drag out. That shift button is going to snap it so it's nice and square. I'll hold down my space bar to get it in the right position. Release my space bar and fix the size. And we have a perfect star. Now there's a couple controls that we've already dealt with. The up and down arrow keys, instead of changing the number of sides like they do on our polygon, will actually change the number of points. So as I start drawing here, instead of a 5-pointed star, I want a 6-pointed star. So I'll tap the up arrow key once to get 6 points. I'm going to hold down my shift key to make it nice and square. And you'll see that I have it pretty much exactly how we want it. But those center points of the star, the inside points, are a little bit too small compared to the exterior points or the outside points. And I'm going to use another keyboard shortcut to change that. So we'll introduce the control button now. What that does, if I hold down the control button, it's going to make it so that Illustrator is only changing the location of the outside points of the star when I move my mouse around. So what we want to do first is get the inside points in the right location. So I'm actually going to make the star a bit bigger until the inside points line up with the inside points of the template star. And then when I hold down the control button and move my mouse, you'll see that it's leaving those inside points where they are, and it's only moving the outside points. So now I can move them into right where they need to be, right there. And I can release my mouse button. We have a perfect 6-pointed star. Down here with the blue one, again, we start in the center and we drag out. I'm going to hold the shift button down to make sure that it is nice and square. I'm going to tap my up arrow keys until I get the proper number of points on my star. Again, I'll make sure that the inside points line up. I'll hold down the control button and I'll make sure that the outside points line up, just like that. Release my mouse button. I have my 3 shapes. I want to select them and use the eyedropper tool to change their colors to the template colors. And I'm done. So if I turn off my template layer, you'll again see that I have my 3 vector shapes. And if I zoom out, you'll see that all 4 of my artboards are complete. I can leave my template layer invisible or toggled off. I want to do a file and save as. I'm going to click Don't Show Again and save on your computer. And we want to find our OneDrive. Let's create a folder in here. And we'll call it Vector Art. And inside my vector art, I want to save my basic shapes worksheet.ai, which is the native Adobe Illustrator file type. I'll click OK. So I have my working file saved. Now I want to save my raster image so that I can send it to mom and show off the new tools that I've learned in Adobe Illustrator. So I'm going to click File, come down to Export, and click Export As. I'm going to make sure that it's in my OneDrive again. We're going to find our vector art folder, click into there, and I just want to change my save as type to PNG. Once I've done that, I can click export. It's going to ask me for some settings here. I don't need a transparent background for this one, so I'm actually going to change it to white. Gives me a little preview here. You can change your resolution if you'd like. For what we're doing, screen or medium should be okay. It's just going to increase the file size as you increase your resolution. So we don't need to do high for this. We'll do medium and click OK. So now that we're done exporting and saving our file, we can submit both our vector AI file and our raster PNG on our assignment. Next up, we are going to work on some more advanced shapes using our Pathfinder tool.